let's have some fun tonight. So tonight we're doing the 2017 forecast, and I hope it's not just me talking, because all of y'all are welcome to have insights, and I will occasionally stop and say, what do you think about that? And if anyone has an idea about what it might mean beyond or in contrast to or in addition to anything I've said, you know, it's a free forum. At the same time, we have a tremendous amount of material to cover. So I would ask that you make your contributions rather concise, because if you saw the list of everything I'm going to try to get to tonight, it would boggle your mind. So let's begin. So what I'd like to start with tonight is some overview comments. First, I want to mention the orbs I'm using. If you don't know what an orb is, it's how exact is the aspect. And starting this year, I'm starting to use wider orbs for mundane events. Mundane in astrology means it relates to the world at large and not just an individual. And for the record, I'm using 10-degree orbs for conjunction, opposition, trine, and square, 8 for the sextile, and 5 for semi-square, sesquare, semi-sextile, and quincunx. And that may seem like a lot, but when you actually look at what goes on in the sky, you actually need to enlarge. In fact, Rick Tarnas talks about this in Cosmos and Psyche, if you're familiar with that masterwork. So that's why the aspect patterns, for example, will be running as long as they are. So we're going to do some animations here, and what I thought I would start with was I realized certain things are better demonstrated by movies rather than just static images. So we're going to start with the displayed points Uranus and Pluto. Who knows about the Uranus-Pluto square? Yeah, it is by no means absent yet. So we're going to start looking at that. So initially, we're just going to be looking at conjunction, opposition, and square here. And we're going to animate. So we're going to start in January 1st. And so right now, what's the history of Uranus and Pluto? Is there anyone here? Well, let me just go ahead and cover my bases just to be sure, because this is going to be a video as well, and some people won't know. Uranus and Pluto have been active with us for many years. There were 7 exact squares of these two planets, 2012 through 2015. They're now in what would be called the waning of the square. It's lessening, but it is by no means done. By my calculation, its effects will be around through 2020. Okay. The best way to compare the Uranus-Pluto square for easy understanding is it's like the 60s part 2. In the 1960s, Uranus and Pluto were conjunct, 64 to 66. And we all know how radical that decade was, and our times here are getting pretty darn radical too, are they not? Can you say Trump? All right.
The opposite of the 60s to me.
Well, what they have in common is they're very radical. There's a lot of quick change. Things are happening unexpectedly. Now, it appears we're now going in a much more conservative direction politically, but it doesn't change the fact that that was a radical change from what we had before. Uranus-Pluto can shift radically or conservatively. It just wants change from what's already been happening, is kind of what they like. So the interesting thing about the 60s is even though the exact conjunctions of those two planets were exact 64 to 66, the most radical year of the 60s was 1968. And what I believe is happening with them is the exact aspects kind of plant the seeds, and in the years immediately following is when the real stuff happens, you know? I mean, very few people saw the Trump election coming, for example. That's pretty radical, okay? So here we are, you know, the year following the last square. We're now like, what, about a year and a half past it? And now the really interesting things are starting to happen even more. So that's what I believe is happening with Uranus and Pluto. So I wanted to show you
What happened in 68 that made it the radical point?
You know, I don't remember the exact events. Say what? Yeah, a few people got killed. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this by weeks. So yeah, you can go look in your 1968 big events of the year and see just how much crazy stuff happened. But we're in a similarly radical time now. So unto themselves, Uranus and Pluto together, as I said, are revolutionary transformation. Individually, Uranus, you know, wants radical change quickly. I say the 3 high side ways an individual can use Uranus is first, you know, my shorthand is fly your freak flag. I definitely borrowed that from the 60s, which means be your authentic self. Be the real you. Don't compromise it because someone might be offended or upset. Just be the real you. Okay. The second is follow your intuitive flashes. And the third is once you know what really turns you on and what you're excited to do it to help people. take your gifts that you're especially good at, that you love to do, and go help people with it. To me, that's the high side Uranus. If you don't take Uranus high, then it can give you nervous system challenge, like anxiety, nervous, irritable, crazy feeling, all right? So basically, when Uranus is strong, either natally or by transit, doing the 3 high side recipes, keep it from bothering you on the low side so much. Now, Pluto is another character. Uranus moves very quick. Pluto tends to go very slow when it's by itself. Pluto says, first, release everything that does not serve you. Okay, I kind of take it to 4 levels. First, get rid of all the stuff you don't need. Clean house. If something's in your life and it's necessary or fun or inspiring, keep it. But if there's stuff laying around, it's not necessary, it's taking up space, then get rid of it somehow. Second is relationships. Look at the people you're with, put them in 3 categories. One is the wonderful people. You're around them, you feel great, they're catalyzers for your growth, they're applauding you, cheerleading you, go, go, go. Obviously hang out with those people. On the other extreme, toxic, negative people, you hang out with them and you feel like you got to take a shower afterward, So either let them go completely or minimize contact, and then there's some in the middle, some good, some bad, and you'll have to make the call whether it's worth trying to work it out with them to make it more harmonious. So that's level 2 of Pluto clearing. Third level is your own ways of being and ways of thinking. In my experience, shamanically, the universe is a realm of unlimited possibility, and if you have thoughts that are less than that, then consider revising them. Okay, so basically ask yourself, where am I limiting myself in my own conceptual framework, and can I break out of that? In my journey of awakening, it's like there's so many layers of illusion. I just had this big, oh wow, I see it now. And then you realize, I don't see the 17 layers of illusion I'm still stuck in. I'm not aware of them yet. So be assured there are more and more layers of awakening, and I think it just goes on infinitely. So Pluto says, don't assume that your current view of reality is complete. Guaranteed there is more to awaken to, whether you're speaking in spiritual terms or just personal realization, growth as a person, there's always more. And Pluto says, get growing, and don't just get complacent about where you're at. Now, if you do this surrender, if you let go of the stuff and relationships and ways of being and ways of thinking you don't need, then you've got an empty teacup. It can be filled, okay? And what does Pluto give you? He gives you power, okay? Now, Pluto's a little tricky. If you just try to run the power from your ego, it's easy to become a tyrant or a dominating person, okay? Hitler, Darth Vader, that kind of archetype. But people like Gandhi and Nelson Mandela also had strong Pluto, and they said, okay, I'm going to let the divine power fill me, and I will serve through that. So in my own experience, the more I just relax, now I'm going to be metaphysical and spiritual. I can't help it. It's so central to I am, I can't avoid it. So I apologize if anyone is not thus inclined. But it'll be a minority of what I'll be talking about tonight. But to me, when I surrender to the divine, I say, please just make use of me. I surrender to my own inner guidance, then that's real power. And then in my experience, the more I have surrendered and just asked to be used for service, the more powerful I become. So that to me is the ultimate Pluto. I mean, look at the glyph. I mean, here you got a person raising their arms to heaven and saying, I surrender! And this, of course, is the surrender where you win. Okay? So that's my Pluto prescription. So the more you release all that does not serve you, it's not fun anyway, you may as well let it go, then the more you can surrender and be filled with the divine power, which is just infinitely greater than any ego power you might ever manifest. So those are my individual prescriptions for Uranus and Pluto, and together, of course, radical change happening fast, All right, so if you are in a life space right now where everything's just fine, you're cruising, it's like a hammock swing, raise your hand. 2. Okay, well, you must be having now occasionally you get a vacation period and all right, sometimes I get a client, not roughing, but they have no major aspects right now, no major transits hitting them by hard aspect. And they say, well, yeah, kind of going along status quo usual. I say, okay, just wait a while. The outers will be along soon enough with a hard aspect. But it is true that you can cruise for a period. But I only saw 2 hands raised out of all these people, okay? So the tone of these times is change, big change now. And my advice, generally speaking, with the things we're going to be looking at and as a general thing for the times we're in, is just go to the next level. Don't get complacent and stick in your current level of consciousness. How can I move to the next one? What can I do? How can I surrender? How can I allow, release, work toward it, whatever your strategy is. That's a great thing to do with Uranus and Pluto doing their thing. So what I'd like to show you, and I want to see if I can do it from here. Let's see, we're on weeks. So I'm going to animate these guys. They're starting January, so every tick is going to be a week. So here they go. So that means they just went through
Now you're in July.
July. Okay, so that's how long they're in a 10-degree square, 10-degree orb of square. Then, so here we are then at July 27th. Are they done? Let's see. Let's keep them going. Oh, they're back. They're within 10 degrees again, starting here, which is right about, that's October 2017. So that's the next iteration of the square. They'll do that for a while. Then they will, again, move out of the orb again. That's roughly summer 2018, June roughly, where they leave square again, but they're not done. They will once again. There it is again. So the square comes back again here late 2018. And then they go beyond 10 degrees again. Oh, no, they don't. They stay a while. And then there it is again. Okay, another square within 10 degrees. And that's in early 2020. And that's the last one. I promise you there are no more beyond that. So these guys are within the mundane orb of 10 degree square all the way through the beginning of 2020. So they are not done. Okay?
Trump's presidency.
Okay. Okay, so let's add a planet. So I'm going to add Jupiter. And it just so happens that this year Jupiter is a big player in the sky hanging out with Uranus and Pluto. So we're going to come back to today, or the beginning of 2017, I should say. So right now we've got a T-square. So a T-square is a geometrical right triangle. It means two planets are in opposition. And then the two opposing planets make a 90-degree square to the third planet. And let's just see how long this lasts. So now because this is going to be happening, I'm going to go to days now instead of weeks. And let's see how these guys fly. How long is that T-square in play? So now we're into March. Still there, still there. Oh, looks like it's fading. There we go. All right, so we lost one of the corners, which means the T-square is out. And so that one goes through the end of April, actually. So all the way through April, Jupiter-Uranus-Pluto T-square. So how does that work? Okay, we already know what Uranus-Pluto does. Now we have to add Jupiter. Jupiter, its fundamental nature is I want to expand what's already happening. So first Jupiter says, let's take whatever I'm asking and make it bigger. It's the gas giant. It's the biggest planet other than the sun in the system, right? So Jupiter squaring them. And by the way, the hard aspects, the square and the opposition, are not bad. They're just intense. They demand something happen, okay? So this says Jupiter is very actively and assertively amplifying Jupiter and Pluto, okay? Now, there's other things that can be happening here too, and this is speaking both societally and individually, okay? So Jupiter, its coordinatal meaning, there are several. First, it's religion, philosophy, meaning of life, okay? So what better time when the planets of revolutionary transformation are making such a strong contact to the planet of what you believe, what a great time to question your beliefs. You know, I have had my beliefs disproved so many times in my overall spiritual journey that I just say, okay, I'll hold a belief conditionally, but I ain't holding it as definitely true. Okay, I mean, I have to have some beliefs to operate on, but I am totally ready for the reality to revise the belief. What I have learned is that if the reality is different than the belief, I trust the reality and I revise the belief. So that's what I recommend as a nice strategy while this is going on. You know, hold your beliefs lightly. There's two possibilities. One is it might be true, but even if it is true, it's only true at this level. Once you start going multidimensional, you know, a truth that's absolutely true here in 3D, once you get beyond and you're the spiritual consciousness, oh, that's relatively true. It's not true out here where I'm at. It's true down in 3D. So it's interesting. It's hard to verbalize, but once you go to the next level of consciousness, that truth is a whole lot less potent because, oh, that's a relative truth. I see. It's true down here, not out here. I hope that makes some kind of sense to you guys.
An example of that, maybe?
Can't really be verbalized. Okay, here's an example. For example, I could say, I am so upset that Donald Trump got elected. I'm just going to throw a pout for 4 years, you know? And then and at the ego level, I'm not happy that this conservative energy is coming into the US, and a lot of the progressive things I love so much about what Obama did are going to be reversed, most likely. But when I come out to my spiritual self, I say, oh, all is well. There's nothing wrong at all. Okay? I am the absolute peace that cannot be shaken, so nothing could possibly happen bad. And it's, oh, that's just soul growth stuff down there. People need to get shook up and stimulated. So their status quo can be interrupted and they can get a little less comfortable so they can get that growing cutting edge. So the Trump blessing is we get to grow faster. Okay? Think about it. You don't grow as a person when it's all on cruise control. Likewise, if it's too crazy, if you are scrabbling just to survive, you're not going to be focusing on spiritual growth. You're going to be looking for the next meal or the place to be. Okay? You need something in between. Okay? Not too crazy, not too calm. And I think with Trump, there's going to be enough shaken up and enough of your buttons are going to get pushed by what he does that you'll have to say, oh, look, something negative is arising. Oh, something I can heal. Let's go. I have a metaphor I've been using lately called the great onion of consciousness. And the way it works is at the core of the onion, again, I'm getting spiritual again, so your awakened self, the pure absolute peace that you are, bliss, ecstasy, flow, ease, grace, all that is the core. But every time you've had a wound or trauma that was not healed, it puts a little layer around it, a little dark layer, okay? And not just from this life, but from past lives too, okay? So we've got who knows how many layers. We're on the outside looking in toward the core, some light's coming through, but gosh, if I just peel those layers, I'd have a lot more, okay? And so what I tell my clients a lot is, okay, every time you have a challenging emotion come up, that's your signal that the outermost layer is asking to be peeled. So if you have an upset of any kind, say, oh, great, that's something I can, and I have an invocation I teach on my site, maximum healing that certifies good please, passive breathing, and the divine energy comes in and flushes it off. Okay, you can learn more on astroshaman.com if you want to learn more about that. But there's zillions of great techniques for doing that. What I would say is just what I've learned true for myself is if I'm upset by anything, the problem is mine, not the catalysts. And therefore I take it, oh good, something else I can grow through, and I know, and I've done enough, when I clear those layers, I come out shinier and brighter on the other side. One less layer, more brightness. So that might be an interesting philosophy to take into this whole Trump era. When something upsets you, say, okay, can I use this as a catalyst to activate my own healing journey? And then if you're still called to go out and protest or take active action, of course, do that. If you're called within yourself to be more active, that's absolutely perfect. Did you have a question?
No, I just want to make a comment.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of the stuff is projection and fear.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a mantra going really strong now. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. It's the same thing.
Good.
Just using different words.
Excellent.
But being in this moment.
Yes.
Because in this moment, thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever.
Beautiful. Okay. Whatever work gets the job done.
Last Wednesday.
I bet you did. Okay. All right. So back to Uranus, Pluto, Jupiter. Okay. So Jupiter is also other things. It's learning and teaching. Not just any learning, but Jupiter's like higher level learning, like things that are meaningful in terms of life. As contrast to Mercury, which is like facts and figures and information, Jupiter says, I'm going to take all that and take something meaningful out of it. So this also can be a time when you can learn, be the student, and make radical jumps forward in your understanding and learning of stuff. And if you're already to the point where you're a teacher, Jupiter's also the guru, the professor, the philosopher, the giver of wisdom. You can do that. It's a great time if you feel like you're here to step out and give a radical teaching and shake people up for the better, then it's a great time to do it with Jupiter square Uranus and Pluto. And of course, Jupiter's expansion, joy, exuberance, enthusiasm, ecstasy, and that can just go off the charts with Uranus and Pluto firing it up. So when it's time, party! All right, have a good time. So that's what I would say. Now, of course, Jupiter's also in Libra, the sign of relationships. So that goes back to what I said already about Pluto. Good time to look at your relationships and get rid of the ones who were toxic for you or not helpful. More time with the ones who were helpful and weed out the middle. Libra is also creativity. So this can also be a time when if you are doing anything creative, be willing to step outside the box. Say, wow, if I get an inspiration of something that's totally outside of what I've done before, same modality but a different theme maybe, or a whole new modality, great time to do that with Jupiter stimulating the Libran energy of artistry. So those are some basic ways you could play with Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto. Any comments before we move on?
You're going to touch into the fact that Libra rules politics, and so there's maybe some balance that might step in through the chaos.
Okay, I think, did you mean that Jupiter rules politics?
Well, I'm sorry, Libra. Jupiter and Libra both have to
Okay.
do with politics. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hope that does help. There are some balancing aspects even more blatantly that I'll be getting to. So, but I think the opposition in the square would not be massively conducive for that. This is more of a shake it up vibe. But I will be getting to other softer aspects that will be giving that message. Anything else before we move forward? All right. So are we done when we get to the end of April with Jupiter and Uranus and Pluto? Well, let's see. Now, the ends on Jupiter still square Pluto here. So that has not gone away at all. That square to Pluto is holding, holding, holding. And in fact, here we are into August, and Jupiter is still square Pluto. Okay. And now, even as the Pluto square fades, it's back into Uranus, as I think in September that's when it can. So Jupiter now is opposing Uranus again. And now it finally fades in November. So basically, Jupiter is stimulating either Uranus or Pluto, both or singly, all the way through October. Okay? So that's most of the year for those effects I was talking about with Jupiter playing with Jupiter and Uranus. And now we're done with that. Okay, so basically, what I'm doing is, this will be different than my last year's presentation, which was chronological. Today, this time I thought it would be so much more meaningful if I start with the larger themes and then kind of give more small and specific examples of those themes being stimulated by quicker planets. Okay, so that's going on. Then let's add Vesta. Okay, I'm going to look up here, see if I can do it from over here. Hey, I can do this. All right, so Vesta is one of the asteroid goddesses. I use her. Let's see when Vesta comes to the party. I'll fire it up. There it is. Oh, didn't take long. Okay, so, but we don't have the full Grand Cross. There it is. Okay, we need all the lines. Okay, so we have a Grand Cross with, and a Grand Cross is a full geometrical square with Vesta. So what does Vesta add to the party? The way I interpret Vesta is level 1 is working on yourself, kind of like an athlete would train. Make yourself a finely honed instrument for what you do. Then, once you're a finely honed instrument, Vesta is about going out to a level of service to the collective, okay? Serving a higher cause. So this is saying if you, starting in mid-January, if you're feeling like you want to serve a cause, perhaps a cause that is a catalyst for positive transformation and change, how perfect would that be with all this going on? Okay? Maybe even with Jupiter in a religious or political area. Okay, might be interesting. All right, now let's see how long this goes on. It gets really tight there. So this is a long-lasting Grand Cross, isn't it? Okay, yeah.
It started the day before the inauguration.
Uh-huh, that's interesting. And then it's not done till like April 20th. So we've got, what, about 4 months of that? Okay, so that's a long-term pattern too, with Vesta playing this here. Okay, so I wanted to point out that that was going on. And there's one other pattern I want to show you as an overview, and it has nothing to do with these planets at all. So we're going to take these guys out, and we're going to add in Saturn and Chiron. Because Saturn and Chiron are kind of a big deal this year. So let me come over here real quick and get back to the beginning of the year. All right, so here on January 1st, they're already in play. Okay, and I will tell you more about how they've been going for a while already. So let's go to weeks, shall we? Let's speed up our pace a little bit. Let's see what happens to that square as we go through time. Oh, there it went. It finally faded. And when was that? That was February 2018. Okay. So that, if again, using a 10-degree orb, Saturn and Chiron are square all year long. They are not going anywhere. Okay. So that's a big one. Let's think about, would anyone like to volunteer an opinion about effects of Saturn square Chiron? Any healing?
Karmic healing.
Karmic healing, good. Any other thoughts on what that might be?
Simulating a lot of resistance to authority.
Resistance to authority, that is definitely a possible experience. Yeah? Any other thoughts on that?
Say massive migration also, since it's between Sagittarius and Pisces.
Ooh, I like your deep interpretation. And that's pretty well guaranteed with the way the world is right now, right? Okay. Any other thoughts on Saturn square Chiron? Sweet. Okay. So Chiron is the wounded healer. That's the archetype. So on the more challenging side, Saturn, of course, is, as my mentor Kelly Lee Phipps loved to say, Saturn writes the reality checks. So Saturn says if some structure is not in alignment with your highest good, I will show that to you by bringing challenge to you. And you can either, if you can restructure that thing in a way that is highest good, fine, I'll support you and we can add on to it. If you're in a structure that is serving your highest good, then no challenge arises. Why would it? Okay. So my observation, I've done about 6,000 sessions over my professional career. And what I observe is these planets are definitely running from they are agents of your higher self. Okay. And for example, in the sky, the unique effect they have on you will be according to whether or not you are in alignment with your soul purpose right now. And of course, the very nature of astrology is it is your soul purpose. It is a map of why you incarnated. And if you understand it, you can be much more on track with fulfilling the reasons for the life mission. Okay? So Saturn says when the structure is not optimal, I challenge it. When it is in alignment, then I hold it steady. Chiron, when you have something that needs healing, like that outermost layer of the onion needs to be peeled, Chiron will make sure a wound gets triggered. It'll give you some kind of challenging event to catalyze that for you. And then if you know how to work with those things consciously, and remember, if I put one finger at you, I got 3 fingers pointing back at me. So work on yourself first, okay? So basically, it'll bring up whatever healing is needed to take you to the next level of your journey. And if you are healed enough, then Chiron can activate you as the healer and the mentor yourself. I see, without fail, when I see someone with a prominent Chiron in the chart, I ask, do people often come to you for advice? Has been a pattern? I say, yeah, people kind of do that. I seem to somehow know what to tell them, So at the very least, Chiron seems to always work as the mentor. But healer, a lot of people haven't activated that yet. So that's potential. I have even expanded my definition of Chiron. It can also be the shaman, and it can be the spiritual awakener, too. Okay, so I apply those ideas. Did you have a...
Well, I think there's another element here, too, and that is Pisces has a tendency to fall into a victim consciousness,
Okay.
which I think we're seeing, starting and have been seeing for a long time. And then Saturn says sovereignty, master your energy, master your life. So there's that challenge. So it's not to give your power away and not to fall into a victim consciousness. And I think that's a huge crux of what's going on right now.
Beautifully said.
I tend to wonder if this doesn't also give impetus to what we were just talking about with the spiritual reconfiguration of what was it, Pluto, Uranus, and the other one,
Jupiter?
Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because Jupiter and Sagittarius, and then Saturn and Sagittarius expands.
Right.
So Sagittarius would be expanding Saturn, which is all about doing your homework.
Right.
Okay, and then Chiron in Pisces is very spiritual, very feeling.
Yes.
So wouldn't that, give some impetus to what you were just talking about?
Definitely can.
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
I agree with you, but I also know that it's an individual choice. I know some people who get these triggers and they have unhelpful reactions. They blame the other person, they play victim, and some people are not yet ready to do the inner work on themselves. Those who are more conscious and understand that the inner work is necessary for the growth will get to business and get their inner work done. They'll do their what's called shadow work. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Sort of.
Did I miss your point?
I just think that this square would either, I don't know if I want to say underlines or would highlight the soul searching for the spiritual practices that we were just talking about. And again, I understand it depends on the individual.
Right.
Because, we all have free choice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that sometimes that free choice, people, they can't see the light because it's too dark.
Right.
Okay.
True. Yeah, so I would say it definitely is offering itself as a catalyst for our growth. So far what we've seen about the year is and again, I've been focusing on the hard aspects so far, which frankly are a more dominant theme than the soft ones this year. So I'd say we're in a year where we'll get plenty of catalysts and we'll have all kinds of growth opportunities. Yay. Now we're going to start some static images for a while, so I won't have to mess with the computer so much. So this is a grand cross with a lot of planets. Sun, Vesta, Ceres, Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto. It's a relatively short one. It starts, when I've given the 3 dates here, like 1/9, 1/13, 1/16, the first date is when it begins, the second date is when it peaks, and the last date is when it is done, using the orbs I'm using, okay? So this in the early, and I'm not going to spend too much time because it's a short-term effect, but it just kind of gets the year off with a pretty incredible bang. All the planets we've talked about already, with the addition of the Sun and Ceres acting as catalyzers. Ceres is a planet that can be a wounding planet because Ceres, or Demeter in the myth, lost her daughter to Pluto, and she had all this sorrow she had to deal with. So it can work on that level. But Ceres, Demeter is also the grain goddess of the harvest. So Ceres is also an indicator of prosperity and abundance, okay? So this could be taken, and since Pluto is here too, and he's the lord of great wealth among his meetings, okay, as well as the lord of psychology and your shadow work. And then Jupiter, of course, has a long-term association with expansion and success. So this amazing little Grand Cross, January 9 to 16, is a time when if you want to focus yourself financially, it would be a really sweet time to do that. You could think new financial opportunity may be available. You might think and brainstorm, how can I create more abundance that way? And it doesn't have to be money. Abundance comes in many forms, okay? It's just saying, here is abundance, expansion, opportunity, and the fact that it's all hard aspects means there's a lot of juice to it, and you can really run with it, okay? At the same time, the same exact planets, Ceres again, sorrow, Pluto, psychology and depth, could stimulate, deep inner work as well. So any way you want to play that, you can. So basically that's some thoughts on how to use that. And what I've done on some of these where I didn't want to list every single thing, I put related aspects. There are other aspects within this that are individual as well. So that's what the related boxes are about. There's just a little more information that I may not verbalize each time. Okay, beyond that, the Uranus-Pluto square in 2017 makes its closest approach on February 6th. So that is the date this year when they're closest. They're 3 degrees and 2 minutes apart at that point. So that's still pretty darn close, okay, for a mundane orb. Now again, I have also noticed that even let's say Uranus and Pluto were exactly square on a given day, usually there's no big event that day, okay? And I want to explain the difference between stage setters and triggers for those who don't know about that. In astrology, the way I see it work is the planets Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto kind of set the stage for a big event. And then anything quicker than that, Saturn, Jupiter, etc., when they align with that, and it's usually a hard aspect, quadrature, conjunction, opposition, square, when they align with those outer guys, then something happens, okay? So what I've noted in some of the slides I'll be showing you is some of those trigger events, okay? But you can have, Jupiter and Saturn, Saturn and Jupiter can have some of their own juice, but anything quicker than that, Sun through Mars, they're really just trigger guys, okay? They do carry some meaning, but they mainly function as triggers when you're looking at this kind of work. So what I'm saying is if you don't have the slow guys holding energy on a particular point, then there's not likely to be a really significant event happening, okay? All right, so let's see what else we have. Then we, getting into February, have another grand cross. This one's more intense, okay? So we still have the foundation of it as Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter, and Vesta is still there. Who's new? Mars, over conjunct Uranus. And this one begins on Valentine's Day, February 14th, peaks on the 24th, ends on March 8th. This one is pretty volatile. Who knows what Uranus and Mars do when they get together?
Explode.
They might. Any other thoughts on what a Uranus-Mars combo might bring about?
Revolution.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like putting a match to the dynamite sometimes, okay? Say what? Kapow, right. Okay? So everyone's given sort of dramatic examples, and it can also be radical impulsive behavior, unrestrained sexuality. It can just be acting without thinking if you're not conscious of it. But actually, it's one of my favorite combinations because, again, what I have seen and what I believe is that there's nothing in astrology, no matter how challenging it may look, that cannot be taken positive, that cannot be life-affirming. Uranus-Mars, what could be better than getting the intuitive flash from Uranus and taking immediate action on it with Mars? Okay? Or going to the next level in Mars themes like the warrior, the pioneer, the initiator, striving for a worthy cause, getting in gear, getting action going. Those are fantastic ways to make use of this. So,
Can I speak to that for a
please,
minute?
please.
Well, when Mars recently squared Uranus, that was when there was the big standoff going on at Standing Rock, and all of the police came in and riot gear. And so the negative impulse of that was a whole bunch of people got violently injured, but the positive impulse is it got all over the internet, Uranus, and really supported the cause for Standing Rock.
Absolutely. Beautiful analysis. Thank you. So again, what you cannot control is what the larger society does with this. You can't control what the government does or what another foreign country does. What you can control is what you do. So I will be, of course, making some reference to the larger scheme, but my main interest today and always is how can you use this in your own life to make wonderful energy out of it. And let me mention too, for example, right now I'm running a T-square special, because right now we've got, I think Uranus, it's Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter already in a T-square now that'll last into next year. And I'm saying, get your free chart check. And what I'm amazed at is out of all the replies I've gotten, probably 80% of the people don't have this stimulating them in a meaningful way. About 20% do, okay? But again, they're working a pretty narrow range of the cardinal signs, just 7 degrees. I'm just looking 7 degrees cardinal around the chart. There's a lot of real estate that isn't in there. So another thing to notice is you look at these massive things going on and say, man, I'm just not feeling it. I don't seem to be really rocked by this. If so, it's because they're not making a strong hit to anything in your natal chart. So obviously all I can do today is give the mundane thing, but if you really want to see how is it affecting me, you have to look at how are these transits actually running onto your own natal chart and how is that affecting you. So a thing that's just life-changing for someone because it's rocking their sun and their moon, for example, might have no effect on you because it's just hitting void space in your chart. So remember that it ultimately has to be personalized to really get the full impact for you. Okay, so any questions or comments on this before we move forward? Okay. All right. So I do note occasional exact things. Jupiter opposes Uranus exactly on March 2nd. So that might, now Jupiter, there's the trigger, Uranus is the stage setter. So we might have some interesting things happening in early March, late February because of that opposition happening right then. And again, I think I've covered the range of possibilities of how those guys might interact already. All right, we have another grand cross. Oh no, this is the one I already showed you. With Vesta, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, we have exact dates now. I show it active January 19th through April 20th. That was the third animation I did for you. Okay, so now you know timing on that. The T-square with Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto peaks on March 15th. They're as tightly aligned as they can get at that point. So again, I would, it looks like March is going to be pretty intense. That's Jupiter opposing Uranus at the beginning, in the middle of the month, these three guys. So I would expect some strong intensity happening, in the world overall in this time. And again, if these guys are stimulating things in your chart, this could be a really intense time for you too. Okay, this is one of the strongest events of the year right here. Okay, another exact hit, Jupiter squares Pluto exactly on March 30th, right at the end of the month. So that's another intense, so that's, what March? Beginning, middle, and end. 3 bookend events in the middle events. So if you want to make some big change, do it in March. Plan, all right, March is my big change month. I'm just going to plan for that. Okay, and it's spring. How perfect. To launch your big new life revolution while spring is dawning. Okay, perfect. By the way this presentation is structured in 5 parts. Hopefully I'll get to all 5. Part 1 is all the hard aspects. So that's why nothing but squares and oppositions are showing up right now. But next section will be the soft stuff. So for a lot of reasons, it just makes more sense to do it this way. So it's not as grim as it initially looks. Then another trigger event. We've got so now we have Jupiter now working with just one of the 2 outer planets. So here we have Jupiter square Sun, Jupiter-Pluto Sun square, March 29 to April 16 for about half a month. So this is, again, a stimulation of that. So that means first half of April, Jupiter-Pluto gets stimulated by a trigger. And again, I'm not always going to put a lot of interpretation on the quicker planet because, again, they're fundamentally acting as triggers. Then we have another grand cross. I already told you about the Vesta Jupiter-Uranus-Pluto, but now we have Juno and the Sun added to it. And that's adding a lot of energy to the whole matrix now. And that's April 2nd through April 16th, so first half of April. We didn't really catch a break when March was over, did we? A lot of intensity happening here too. So keep working on your revolutionary transformation here. Now Juno, we haven't talked about her yet. And she's conjunct Pluto. That's big. That only happens every, about 5 or 6 years that these guys come together, okay? So Juno is the asteroid goddess of committed partnership. Okay. Now, often, Juno was the wife of Zeus, so you think, oh, it means who you're married to. Well, it's more than that. Committed partnership can be anything, any person I'm in a significant connection with of any type. It could be a family member, it could be a business partner, it could be a good friend. If it's more than just a casual acquaintanceship, it could be Juno territory. Okay. So basically, with Juno coming here and conjuncting Pluto, and getting ready to being hit up by the old Grand Cross. Now this would be a really good time here in the first half of April to look really closely at, if you have a romantic partner, look at that and say, okay, let me tell you my personal motto. It always gets better than this. I have experienced that so many times, especially in the spirit world, where I'd hit a level and think, oh my God, it couldn't possibly exceed this. This is just too ecstatic and blissful. And then I go further and further, and in ways that can't even be verbalized. So, and in my own personal life, it's just like you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know the wonderful next level that's awaiting you when you heal the next level of wounding. So, a beautiful way, even if you have an awesome partnership with Pluto and Juno together, say, how could we take it even to the next level of wonderfulness? What could we do to have an even more amazing relationship? It's a great time not to just coast, but to actively look in that. And I actually have a piece of information that may help you. It's a book that I've been recommending to a lot of clients. It's called Nonviolent Communication by who knows about it? Marshall Rosenberg. Have you all found it helpful? Yeah, getting big nods. Okay, so 3rd edition. It's been out a while. Just without getting into a long tangent on this, basically what he gives you is a way to communicate with someone that allows them to have their say and be heard in a way that is non-confrontational. It has been used like literally with tribes who were committing genocide on each other. And the leaders got together, and using this system, they finally got to where they were trying to help each other. Okay. It sounds too good to be true, but it has been used for 4 decades in the world. It's endorsed by people like the United Nations and the Dalai Lama. It's sold over 1 million copies of the book. It's really awesome stuff. In fact, here in Asheville, there's a guy named Steve Torma, T-O-R-M-A, who teaches classes. I've taken some of them. Yeah, amazing. It's called Our Relationship, R-E-A-L, Relationship. If you Google that, Asheville, you'll find him if you want to take a class here. But basically, anytime I have a client who tells me, oh, I'm having such trouble with my spouse, we're not able to communicate well, I say, get this book, read it, and use the technique. It's very simple and very powerful. So, nonviolent communication, what?
Who's the author again?
Okay, Marshall Rosenberg. But if you just Google nonviolent communication, it'll come right up. Okay, so that would be a wonderful way if you're having any kind of communication issue with someone, you can't seem to connect, then this technique may be super helpful. It's just amazing. Okay.
Can you say anything more about Vesta and Juno in this configuration?
All right, so Vesta is honing yourself and serving the collective. Juno is committed partnership. So again, with astrology, what I like to do is spin creative possibilities. There's no one way it has to play out. What you might say is, wow, how could I partner with someone in my service? Not just do it solo, but find a person whom that person and I are both doing it together. Or maybe my service involves me interacting with another person as an agent of help for that person. Those are 2 immediate possibilities that come to mind. Anyone else have any thoughts about how Vesta and Juno might like to play together?
I think there's an element of the family, parental axis going on with Cancer Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be some ancestral healing also coming into play.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's one thing that I have a lot of people comment in the circles I run and they say, you know, I cleared a lot of my onion layers and now I feel like I'm clearing stuff from my whole family lineage. So yay, go for it. I think the universe makes use of those who are more capable, and you can clear on behalf of others in the great awakening that's going on these days. Okay, good. Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
One way with Vesta in Cancer, that just brings up to me like a devotion to security, a devotion to protection. So I think of the Cancer Capricorn axis to be one of preservation and protection.
I like that. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see what's next. Saturn square Chiron. We know that's happening all year, but it's actually exact twice this year. So one of the exact hits is April 30th, just so you know. And again, we've already discussed what they do. Here's another interesting T-square in Ape. This one goes for, a long time here. So a T-square with, again, the foundational members are Pluto and Jupiter. But we've also got Juno and Pallas. Again, we looked at that. They were part of a grand cross we looked at just a moment ago, but this is where the T-square they form comes at its tightest. So all the themes we talked about with, committed partnership, higher service, etc., could be really intense here. They peak on May 16th, but it starts April 18, goes to June 4th, about a month and a half on this one. Okay? So that's a pretty intense period right there. Now, this one's a Venus, Saturn, Chiron T-square. So the foundation members, I'm so glad I gave you the basics up front because now we can get a better perspective. Okay, Saturn, Chiron, we talked about them. Now, Venus is in the game, okay? Venus is relationship and creativity and money is her core meanings. This is July 15 to August 1st, so basically second half of July. So be mindful in the latter half of July. Look very closely at your relationships. Are they serving you? Chances are pretty good that if you have any area of dysfunction or not serving your highest good in a relationship, it might get triggered here in the second half of July, so be mindful of that. Good time to be actively doing your shadow work. By the way, I do have a shadow work post on my site, astroshaman.com. If you just, I believe it's in the What's New section, or you can Google shadow work and type shadow work in the search box, and I have actually resources that can be accessed nationally and internationally on that little post. I'm a huge fan of shadow work, so I don't wait to get triggered, I just dive in proactively. So watch your relationships. Also money. If there's any way in which your financial structure is not solid, serving highest good, it may be drawn to your attention here in the second half of July. If so, ask yourself, what new structure can I create that will serve better? And creatively, it occurs to me that someone who's doing creative might be inspired to let the creativity express a little of their own healing process, or put out some kind of creativity that has a healing effect, perhaps. Might be an interesting way to use this too. So those are possibilities. Of course, Venus is in Gemini, writing, communication, getting energy out there through communication of some way. By the way, Gemini is normally associated with speech and writing, but Gemini also covers dance and instrumental music. It's just communication. It does not have to be words. Okay? Any questions, comments here before we move on?
I just wonder, are you going to be interfacing with the current events at all based with these transits and so on?
Probably not. Again, because it's so unpredictable as again, like I said up front, it appears with Trump's election, the United States is moving into a much more conservative phase, and we're probably going to, there will probably be more restriction of individual freedoms and the conservative agenda coming forward. So I think that's a general trend we can expect.
Have you interfaced this with the United States chart?
I did not look at these specific aspects to the chart. What is still happening, though, the big event on the U.S. chart is transit Pluto is still in orb of the opposition to the U.S. Sun and squaring the U.S. Saturn. So Pluto is tearing down an old structure. And it's actually past exact, if I recall correctly. So the United States is going through a reboot, in a sense, too, because of the Pluto effect. And once again, it was strongest after it was done. So, but I'm not planning to go heavily into the U.S. chart or even Trump's chart today. Okay. But again, we have a lot of people who are keen on events, and if anyone wants to interface the current events with what you're seeing here, that's why you're here. Okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, Jupiter square Pluto exact on August 4th. Again, we already know what that does, but again, that's another exact hit on that date. T square, now, here's another asteroid goddess, Ceres. We haven't talked about her yet, okay? Oh, no, we did. I'm sorry, we did. Okay, but now Jupiter now has finished with Pluto. Now Jupiter's opposing Uranus here as we get into late summer, early fall. Okay, so Ceres is part of the T-square Jupiter-Uranus series, August 24th to October 14th. That's almost 2 months. So that's a hefty chunk of time you can work with. Again, on high side, Ceres is money. It's abundance, it's wealth, it's the grain goddess. So ask yourself, what revolutionary shift can I make to Jupiter amplify and expand my abundance? Okay? Again, if there's a chink in your abundance strategy, it may get shown to you during this process. So I would say be proactive and be thinking, how can I magnify whatever abundance that's important to me, whether it's financial or otherwise. A reminder also, Ceres is, again, can be about wounding and sorrow because of Demeter mourning, Persephone gone to the underworld. So that may get triggered as well. And those are the main things that occur to me around how that might be specifically interesting. Does anyone else have a thought about how Ceres in the mix of Jupiter and Uranus might manifest, or how it could be positively used? All right. Next up, now Jupiter was finishing with Uranus, and now it's on to Pluto. So same deal, but now Pluto's in the game. So isn't that interesting? Pluto and Ceres, the players, do we all know the myth of Persephone? I should probably briefly tell it. It's more, Ceres in the myth is more commonly referred to as Demeter. The Romans and Greeks had different names for the same gods. But basically, the story was that Ceres was very, very close with her daughter Persephone. Pluto, with the permission of the gods of Olympus, by the way, came up, abducted Persephone, had his way with her, and took her down to the underworld. And Ceres was so devastated by this. Her mom was just, shaken to the core. And Ceres was the goddess of nature, and she said, I'm done. And everything died. And for like 6 months, nothing grew. People started to starve. And finally, and there's a whole lot more to the story than this, but basically finally a deal was worked out where Pluto said, okay, you can have her back half the year. She can come up, but then she has to come down the other 6 months and be the queen of the underworld with me. And that's the myth of how the seasons became. Spring and summer is when she comes above ground, and fall and winter is when she goes back down. So, Ceres opposing Pluto here, July 28th to September 15, could be a theme of release and return, which is another Ceres theme. So watch for that theme. It can be even more explicitly mother-daughter relationships, very explicitly. But look for the basic theme. What am I being asked to release right now? Maybe how it might more generally apply. Are you like Demeter or Ceres being asked to release something that's precious to you? My own belief, based on my own life experience and observing others, is that you cannot have anything taken from you that you actually need. You've got a soul growth mission, and you will be given all that you need to fulfill it. So sometimes you have to release something you're mightily attached to because you have to realize, oh, I'm actually okay without that. But I wouldn't have known if I hadn't been forced to release it. So some of that theme can play sometimes. If you want to be more just positive and proactive, here we have Pluto, the lord of great wealth, Ceres, the money planet, Jupiter expanding everything. So if you want to get really serious with massively amplifying abundance, July 28 to September 15 with this T-square, it could totally run that way too. Ceres is so interesting because she can bring the deepest inner personal work in your emotional field, and she can also bring you a bunch of money. So she's a very versatile asteroid goddess. Any questions about the possible use of this T-square? Ceres, Jupiter, Pluto.
I think there's also a theme that we're experiencing now, fear of the separation of children from their parents. And so
The immigrant thing.
security issues and surrendering, and it may culminate at some point in
It might. Yeah, so if Trump really is serious about deporting a bunch of immigrants, then there could be massive separation of children from, of course, that's already happening in Europe massively with, people fleeing the Middle East because of the chaos there. So this, in a sense, is just partly going to be a reflection of what will still be happening then, I'm sure.
Children's rights also, organizations that are advocating children's rights.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, any other thoughts on this one? Okay, next. T-square with Vesta, Saturn, and Chiron. So now here's the Saturn-Chiron square, still hanging out waiting for visitors, and Vesta shows up. So Vesta says, is there any way in which you're not a finely honed enough instrument? Is there any way in which your service to the collective is not where it should be? If so, then you'll be given a challenge notice. Or maybe you're performing a form of service and it's done. You're done with that and it's time to let it go and release it. Okay? So I don't know. So basically, if the service you're doing, if the way you're honing yourself is already in sync, then Saturn should support it just fine. Chiron can say, fine, now you can go be a healer and a mentor and help other people with it. So this could, if you've healed enough where you're strong in your service and you've got a lot of your stuff healed, this could totally empower you to go out and do more powerful service work in the world. Healer, mentor, awakener, shaman, or just, higher calling of some kind here. So basically pay attention here late August through most of September, again, August 24 to not September 21. So am I being more triggered during this period, or am I feeling like I've really got my juice on and I've got my mojo working to go out and really help people? And which way you feel will let you know how this particular T-square is operating for you. Any questions or comments on this? All right. Then Ceres comes back and hangs out with Jupiter and Uranus now. Ceres that's her third interaction with this T-square, isn't it? Okay. Okay, so August 24th to October 14. Again, that's almost 2 months. Same basic theme as before when Pluto was in the game. Ceres is still abundance. Uranus can be a sudden shift. Jupiter amplifying. Now, again, this could, if we take Ceres as abundance, this could be a radical shift either way. Both Ceres and Pluto can be great abundance or great, loss of resources. It can go either way. So I would say there is a lot of opportunity here, August 24 to October 14, but also the possibility of loss as well. So basically, don't do anything stupid with your money here, but at the same time, be alert to opportunities, I would say. And if you want to take Ceres as, again, the shadow work planet and working with sorrow and stuff with Uranus there and Jupiter expanding it, this period, if you want to do serious shadow work during this period, August 24 to October 14, these guys will definitely be in your back and helping you move deeper into that. So those are the ideas that occur to me there. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right. So again, just to note, exact Jupiter-Uranus opposition September 28. We already know what they do. Mars, Juno, Pallas, Uranus, T-square. November 16 to December 16, 1 month exactly. So here we have the volatility of Mars and Uranus. So things can happen very quickly and possibly be volatile. We've got Juno for your relationships. So here, mid-November through mid-December, be very mindful of your relationships. This is the time when we're often getting together with family here around the holiday. So it could be a little more volatile than usual under these energies. At the same time, if you're working consciously, then, and if you're using your nonviolent communication system, then you can make a breakthrough and have a more harmonious connection, even if it starts as a bit of a challenge, or whatever system is working for you. Pallas Athena in the mix is, I don't believe I've talked about her yet. She's the fourth. Okay, I use the 4 primary asteroid goddesses. Pallas Athena is the warrior goddess, and at the base level, she's feminine assertiveness, and now she can kick butt if she has to. But she's also known for strategy and cunning and planning it out. So I think she'd rather do it through her wits than through her fists. Okay, so she says, instead of just using brute force or being, unconscious, can I plan this out? Can I strategize? Can I negotiate? Can I somehow get a win-win going here instead of just, saying I must win and you must lose? And she also has a third meaning of practical creativity. that can be brought in. For example, she was the goddess who brought pottery to mankind in the myth. And pottery is both, creative, and it's also very functional because you put stuff in it, So that's the basic vibe I have there. So I would say be very mindful of relationships mid-November to mid-December. Take the paradigm shift in a good way. Take your good ones to the next level. And if you are inclined to take a relationship with some challenge and some good, say, can we heal this and take it to the next level possibly? And it can also, of course, be a time when you realize, wow, this committed partnership's done. We've done what we needed to do. Time to cut anchor and let's go our separate ways, and God bless you. So that can work there too. So any questions on this particular T-square or comments? All right. Now we're on to soft stuff. So we've completed our tour of the hard aspects, and we're tracking pretty well. All right, so a cradle is an aspect that has 3 sextiles. These are all 60-degree aspects, 2 planets opposing, and then trines, these 100 degrees connecting them. And cradles tend to be mostly harmonious. Basically, in the solar fire charts, if it's blue, it flows more easily. If it's red, it's a little more intense and challenging. Okay? So here we have from February 4th to the 17th an opportunity to bring a number of interesting things together. Wait a minute. I think I forgot something. I'm going to just mention rather than animate. You see here that Jupiter and Saturn are making a sextile here. Okay? That lasts... it's already in effect September 23rd, 2016. It goes through March 27th of 2017, and it's active again July 11th through October 16. Okay, so that we've got for about half the year of 2017 that's happening. Jupiter sextile Saturn. And this is, so far we've looked at the more challenging, stimulating stuff. But Jupiter and Saturn are the natural opposites. Jupiter's expansion, Saturn's contraction. Jupiter's more progressive, Saturn's more conservative. And so to have this around half the year is saying there is a way we can work this out and find a harmonious balance between us. I mean, even now, the Democrats are saying, some of these things Trump's want to do, we want to do too. We'd love to rebuild the infrastructure. We'd love to have more of a social safety net. Let's all do this together, okay? So in the political realm, maybe they'll find some common ground in those areas, for example. And we can also find common ground with those we are, in contrast with there. Let me see. There's another one that's a long one, but it's not up yet, so I'll wait for that. Okay. All right, so the cradle has that going in it. To me, the heart of the cradle, though, is something we've already been talking about, is the Uranus-Jupiter opposition. So we already talked about how that can make big change in a lot of areas. And also another theme here is Uranus trine Saturn, which again is kind of opposites harmonizing. Uranus is radical, Saturn conservative. Uranus wants to make the shift now, Saturn wants to stay with the tradition. And yet here they are making this flowing connection to each other. Okay? And this is, I didn't note here exactly how long that's happening all year, but it is here present at the beginning of the year. So that's another harmonize that will last a number of weeks. So the other planets are Juno. Again, that's committed partnership. So what a beautiful symbol here, here, and it goes through Valentine's Day too. How perfect. February 4th to 17th. How you can, if you're having conflict with someone, this energy could definitely help you harmonize that. So I would say that might be a really optimal use of this cradle. February, especially around the 11th when it peaks, close to Valentine's Day. Can you harmonize with someone you've been in conflict with? Can you reach out with a little love offering? And my own philosophy about that is you don't give up something that's important to you. You find a way where everybody wins. One of the philosophies in the nonviolent communication book is that compromise doesn't work. What you do is you fully hear the person, and what people do is they hit each other with strategies first, okay? But what the strategy is covering up is a core need that hasn't even been expressed. The person might not even be aware of it. And this technique actually gets people to recognize what their actual needs are. It's really amazing. And when you get down to the end, he says all humans have the same needs across the board. Okay, so when you get down, if you can get past the strategies, which may require compromise, now what's the actual need at the core of the strategy? Now we can find some common ground. So that kind of approach, or any harmonizing approach with committed partnership, might be really sweet during this February 4 to 17 period. So I feel like that's probably the primary focus there. Any, again, questions, comments here? All right. So another cradle kicks off right about when the other one leaves. This one's very short though. Mercury, Juno, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. Mercury now becomes the catalyst instead of the sun. So it's basically the same game. Mercury's there. The one thing Mercury adds that we didn't really have before is communication. So I would say, especially in Aquarius where it's innovative thinking, this would be another great time to work in that relational field. And here, February 18 to 25, you might even be more open to brilliant ideas about how to connect more deeply with somebody. And by the way, if you're not already getting flowing access from your higher self, which is where intuition comes from, then just ask. It amazes me how I've worked with so many clients. I've never had any access for that, and I say, well, or I've never felt energy in my body, which is just another form of the divine community. Say, well, why don't you call some in? Call for whatever, and they call it in, and they feel it. Right? Oh my God, I just felt that. How'd that happen, right? So if you will just leave space for your divine to communicate to you, and of course the divine is always so much smarter than a human brain. I like to say the most brilliant human being on the planet with the most amazing IQ and intellect is a drooling dunce compared to the intelligence of their higher self. It's just leagues smarter in ways that can't even be comprehended. So I'm always a fan of, and I'm going to assume Benjamin's always just pretty stupid compared to that part, so I'm going to ask it for insight wherever I can. And this would be a beautiful time to call upon that inner guidance with Mercury and Aquarius when they can just pop in like a text message from God and help that heal the whole relational thing with Juno in that mix there. Okay, so that's what occurs to me here. Any other questions or comments before moving on? All right. How about a kite with all 4 asteroid goddesses? We had one of these in 2016 too, and here we have it again. This is so cool. This is actually lasting almost a month, July 13 to August 11. So, the asteroid goddesses, we've covered all of them. I mean, it's a little tricky to put them all into one interpretation because they're all so different. I mean, Juno is really about committed partnership. Vesta is about doing your higher service work, and Ceres is about, mother-daughter and abundance and release, and Pallas is about, strategy and assertiveness. So it's just saying, can you blend all that together? Can you, and even if you're a guy, I mean, you may have a male body, but you still have a feminine energy available to you, okay? So I'd say with the kite here, and it looks like a kite, doesn't it? Okay, and to be technical, what a kite is, if you don't know, it's a grand trine, which is an equilateral triangle, and then there's a point between 2 of the points that creates the kite point, okay? So I would say, can you just relax and let all of your feminine parts come forward during this period? Can you say, wow, I can be all relational and feminine, and I can be assertive and strong when I need to be, and I can go out and create abundance if I have to, and I can also, even as I tend to my beloveds and everything else, I can still go out and serve a cause? Can all that somehow blend together for you? Can you say, I can do all this to some degree and not just have to think in either or terms? Can I think in both and terms? That's the broadest interpretation I can bring to how all the asteroid goddesses might play well together. And by the way, there's also there's a note, Mercury is involved with this also July 23rd to August 11th, which is most of the run. So that enhances communication and teaching around this, if that is something you want to do. I think Mercury's over here with Vesta at that point. Any questions or comments on this one? All right. Ever seen an envelope before? So I used to call this a double kite. Okay, so the grand trine is here, and it has not 1 but 2 points on it. So the technical term for this is an envelope. Okay, so I thought that's so cool. All right, so Pluto, Neptune, Pallas, Ceres, Vesta, Mercury, and Venus. Wow, how are we going to interpret that? Any ideas? Okay, so you can think I would say there's so many planets with so many meanings here. We might just broadly think, wow, this is a very beautiful blend of mostly harmonious energy. We have a ton of soft aspects, and the two oppositions give it a little bit of juice so you can do something with it. If it were nothing but soft, then it would have no energy. You need some hard aspects to kind of give it some get up and go. So I would say just this period, August 3rd to August 20th, a little window of opportunity here where you can just flow with whatever you're doing more. And it's an extremely broad interpretation, but I think in the context we have, to try to integrate all those numbers of asteroids and planets would be a little overwhelming. So if you want to study this later, say, what can I do with that envelope? Then seal it up. And there's also a related one. So basically the envelope that does not include the quick guys, Mercury and Venus, just everyone else, Pallas, Ceres, Vesta, Neptune, Pluto, actually starts on the same day, but it goes quite a bit longer all the way to September 2nd. So the main body of it is actually about a month long. Okay. And I would say what is coming to me here, since 3 of the 4 asteroid goddesses are still there, again, the harmonizing of the feminine aspects. Pluto gives the power, Neptune can give the inspiration flow of what to do with it, is a beginning of how that might be interesting to work with that. I know very broad, but there's a huge number of possible ranges here. But I just thought it was cool we got an envelope.
Worldwide concerts.
Worldwide concerts.
Neptune. Remember We Are the World? Remember how that brought
Yeah.
us together?
Yeah,
This could be a statement in that
I
way.
agree.
Could be very useful.
Cool. Who wants to organize it? Cool. All right, so let's move on. Here's another one I want to talk about. Jupiter trine Neptune is exact. These guys get together later in the year. And this is one of my favorite combinations because, again, the trine is easy automatic connection. That's 120 degrees. Neptune, we haven't really talked about yet. He wasn't really part of the hard aspects. Neptune, on the high side, in my experience, is spiritual awakening and going deeper into that beautiful awakening. My experience is you're never done with your awakening. There's always a deeper level you can't even conceive of until it shows up. Even then, you can't conceive of it. You can just be it. Neptune is also creative inspiration in the sense that it brings the inspiration unbidden. The muse just sings to you a lot. Okay, versus Venus kind of creativity where you have to think it up and kind of manipulate it with your ego. Neptune is just more like, oh, it just came. Okay, Neptune also is involved with dream work as a high side expression. Now Neptune also has a low side. Someone who has a strong Neptune in their chart is having a strong Neptune aspect. If you do those high side spiritual, creative, go into the dream world, etc., in a good way. If you don't, then Neptune can give you, really pull you into substance abuse, too much alcohol or drugs or whatever, excessive escapism, or drifting in aimlessness, or playing victim, that kind of vibe. So if you got a strong Neptune, my strategy always with planets is if you keep them busy on the high side, they won't have much energy left to bother you on the low side. So if you're feeling into those low side effects, get involved with your spiritual growth or your creative expression or your dream play, and that'll give Neptune something better to do. Okay, I know it's not always that simple, but it's a good step in the right direction. Now Jupiter, we know already what Jupiter's about, but Jupiter and Neptune have an axis of meaning in common. Jupiter is religion, as in what the ego does to approach the divine or to have a religious path. Whereas Neptune says, we're beyond all that. We got to what the religions point at. We're in oneness and we're in divine consciousness now. So what a beautiful time here in early December and the weeks around it to say, wow, my religious path, is there something I can do to make it more experiential, where I'm not just thinking about God or worshiping God from afar, where I'm actually merging with that divinity within me. Beautiful way to use that. Jupiter, again, the expander, can also expand the creative inspiration. Neptune, of course, is in Pisces, as it has been for many years and will be for many years more. So it's very powerfully amplified there. And great energy you can take to just expand the whole spiritual awakening and creative expression. However, trines are lazy. They have no impetus. So as, again, Kelly, who was a founding member of this group, he passed on several years ago. One of his stock phrases is, you got to mind your trine, which means it's not going to work on its own, it's lazy, but if you apply energy to it, it's already connecting easily. The trick with trines is that you get a certain amount of gimme anyway, because the connection is automatic and it's sort of free-flowing, and you'll get a certain amount, but if you actually apply energy to it, you can take that to a huge, magnificent expression, because it's easy anyway. Yes?
Plus the fact that they're both 29 degrees of water signs, so opportunity.
Well, actually not. They're at 11 degrees.
Sorry?
The 29 is the minutes and the 11 is the degrees. Sorry. I know it's a tricky...
Are you going to talk about the shift from Jupiter from Libra into Scorpio?
I will, but we're not quite there. Okay. So any other questions around or comments around this one? Okay. So that completes our soft aspects. Now we're in part 3, the yods. Has anyone ever seen a triple yod key before? I didn't know these existed. Okay. So does anyone know, or let's just talk about what's a yod, okay? Finger of God is the phrase for it. And again, Kelly said, do this or else is what that means. So basically, the yod is 2 quincunxes of 150 degrees connected by a sextile 60 degrees on the back end, kind of a narrow triangle. And the basic idea is whatever the yod is pointing at, the narrow point, is receiving energy from the 2 guys on the back end. Okay. Now, of course, there were many individual yods in this year's sky, but when I saw 3 of them together, I said, oh my gosh. So there's 3 of them here. We got this one, and we got that one, and we got this one. So 3 at once. Pretty amazing. Okay. So basically, everything's pointing at everything here. So at this point, the way I would approach this, okay, what I basically have as the framework is the meaning of the quincunx, which means adjustment is needed. The nature of a quincunx is this connection to points that are not harmonizing either by mode or by element. And I don't really want to go into what all that means if you don't know, but it means they don't connect easily. But if you're creative, if you can find a way to bring them together, there's always a way that all energies can play well together, then you get something magical happening. Okay? So basically, this period from June 4th to 15th with the triple yod key is saying there may need to be some adjustment here. Things may feel like they're disconnecting and not connecting as smoothly as they might. The stage setters here are Pluto, Neptune, and Jupiter. So we've got transformation, we have spirit flow guiding, we have Jupiter expanding the whole energy, and we have 3 asteroid goddesses, Juno, Vesta, and Ceres. So, but the one, who can tell me which asteroid goddess looks like she's kind of the prominent one here? Actually not. Actually not. Who's conjunction outer planet? Yeah, we saw her in we saw that in another aspect pattern, didn't we? Pluto and Juno together. Yeah. So a conjunction is as hot as it gets in astrology. That's the most powerful stimulation you can have. So if there's one asteroid goddess who's getting lit up, it's Pluto and Juno here. So again, this is reiterating the theme we saw in the other aspect pattern with Pluto and Juno we looked at earlier, is saying transformation of relationship might be a really potent theme right here. And it's saying Neptune sextile. Can you relax if your relationship's in some kind of challenge and you're not quite sure what to do? Can you relax and say, Spirit, can you guide me here? I know there's a way to harmonize this. What would it be? So, go turn within and let the inspiration flow to guide you. Jupiter square would be stimulating that pretty strongly. And the others, they do have roles, but I think given the time we have, I don't want to go into that too heavily with all that. So that would be the main juice I would get off this. Any questions or comments here, June 4 to 15, with this triple yod key? All right. By the way, there are 3 related things. The 3 relateds here are just other forms of this pattern simpler. Okay, but again, it doesn't serve us to go into these. Again, this will be on my video that I put up later if you want to go into more detail on that. Okay, then we have several yods here. And again, so what's happening August 4th through 16th, we have Pluto and Neptune on the back end, and 3 guys come through. The Sun and Mars come early, and Venus comes late. And so basically what we've got here the way I think about this is I've got two stage setters, Pluto and Neptune. By the way, trivia, who can tell me how long the sextile between Pluto and Neptune lasts from beginning to end?
Generations.
Uh-huh. Any sense of the actual number of years?
Let's see. Is it 42 through, I'm going to guess 80 years?
It's about right. It's called the 100-year sextile. And when Kelly told me that first, I said, I don't believe you. I don't believe that could last that long. But because Pluto has an irregular orbit, and at this point in history, it's closely matching the speed of Neptune, it actually lasts about 100 years for that sextile, roughly. So that Pluto-Neptune sextile has been around as long as we've been alive. Pretty amazing. So anyhow, but they're at it again, and to me, the most meaningful way to think of this is that the Pluto power and the Neptune inspiring flow is coming down to Leo, because all these planets are in Leo as they pass through August 4 to September 9. Say what?
Trump's ascendant.
I can't hear you.
He's ascendant in Leo.
Trump's ascended?
Right. So he's getting that spiritual leader. It's going to be.
Well, let's hope he does a good job of it.
It's not easy.
No. But this is saying, to me, I would say, can you get your Leo on, which I haven't really talked about yet. Leo is the archetype of the sovereign on the throne, the performer in the spotlight are the two main ones. But Leo has more different meanings than any other sign in astrology. It's also the playful child, or your inner child being playful. It's about taking risk or speculation. It's about just chilling out and relaxing. All that is Leo. Even though the meanings might seem completely unrelated to each other, they all fall under that archetype. So that'd be a good question. While we've got this roughly month, August 4 to September 9, with 3 personal planets receiving the power of Pluto and the flow of Neptune, but they're not guineas. You need to adjust to them. This is a good time. Do I want to awaken any of those Leo archetypes in me? Do I want to be more of the leader, more of the performer or entertainer? Do I want to be more playful, take more relaxation time? All those would be really good questions to ask yourself August 4 to September 9 while these 3 planets take their turns at the tip of that yod. So any questions on this one? All right. Another triple yod key. We got 2. This one is October. Oh, that was a typo. That should be November 24th, I think. So let me see how I messed that up. To see what it really is. Just a second. October 19. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. That should be a 1. This is a 6-day triple yod key. So it's super quick. And I just really put it up again because I was just so amazed that it even existed.
What's the first date then?
It's actually October 19 to October 24. So it's very brief, hardly even worth mentioning in the context, but it was just so amazing that it even existed. I just wanted to mention it in passing. This one is, again, I think relational is the key on this one too, because Venus is the only personal planet in the mix. Juno is there, they're square. Ceres, I didn't mention that Ceres can also be self-esteem. It's what you value is one of her meanings, and self-valuation is part of that. So that's a little flavor of that. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's brief and we'll be gone before you know it. Okay, now we're on to part 4, the Thor's hammers. Okay, so Thor's hammer sounds pretty intense, doesn't it? Okay, I think it's also called a quadriform. Is that one of the names for it? I think. Okay, Thor's hammer is so much more fun though, especially with the Marvel movies now. Okay, but it's a hard aspect, obviously, not quite as intense as a T-square or a grand cross, because it does have a square 90 degrees, but the other 2 angles are, this is the only aspect in astrology that has 3 different names. It's 135 degrees. You can call it a sesquiquadrate, a sesquisquare, or a sesquare. And I've really just gone with sesquare because it's just quicker. But this is a period, April 20 to 29th, where we've got Pluto and Mars and Jupiter and Juno again. The Pluto and Juno are in a lot of aspects, aren't they, here? So this is a time of general intensity and great time for growth and change and taking assertive action. But again, watch your relationships, and I've given you the spiel on that already. But this would be a time when relationship growth and healing could be really potent here, April 20 to 29. Or any powerful action that needs to be motivated or initiated would be pretty strong here. Any questions on the Thor's hammer with Mars, Juno, Jupiter, Pluto?
Why is it called Thor's hammer?
I think if you have a real good imagination, that maybe looks like the hammer from the top or something.
Is that intense in other words?
Yeah, it's pretty strong. I mean, again, it's not at the same level of a T-square or a Grand Cross, but it's definitely, and especially if the planets themselves are intense enough, it can be strong. We get another Thor's hammer September 5 to 30, most of September, Jupiter-Neptune series. So this one you could use to initiate financial opportunity because we got the money planet, we got Neptune flowing whatever serves you, and we got Jupiter amplifying abundance. So I would say that would be a cool way to do that. Also could be a really sweet energy for spiritual work because Neptune again is oneness flow, Jupiter is your religious path. Ceres again isn't a blatantly religious planet, but in the sense that she helps you do your shadow work and peel the layer of the onion I talked about, could be really juicy that way. So those are a couple of ways that occur to me that you could use this particular one. Any feedback? Okay. How about a double Thor's hammer? Oh, wait a minute. How about a triple Thor's hammer? We got triples all year. It's amazing. Okay, 3 Thor's hammers at once. This is just amazing. Okay. So again, I just mainly put this up because I just couldn't believe it existed. So let's see how well we've learned our theory. Of all the planets here, which planets really set the stage for what this Thor's hammer is about? There's 2 of them to kind of set the defining energy of the Thor's hammer. Anyone got an idea? Not in my opinion. Okay, at the very beginning of this lecture, I told you there were certain things in the sky that were like the stage setters for the whole year, and one of those combos is here.
Saturn and Chiron.
Thank you. Yes, Saturn and Chiron. So that's intense healing and challenge and such. So they're in play. Mercury's in play. Maybe if you're feeling like your communication is restricted or you are limiting your own thinking, maybe can you break out of that? Can you take them to the high side? I am Saturn the authority. I'm Chiron the mentor. I'm going to bring some wonderful information to you that'll help you. Ceres, again, how is she playing this time? I'm feeling Harvest as a good possibility here. And Pallas Athena says the assertiveness that you'll need to make this all happen. So her assertiveness and strategizing. So I'm feeling like an interesting way to use this during its flow from October 10 to October 26 would be, can I step up as the mentor, as the authority? Can I communicate what needs communicating in an assertive way, in a way that brings value and abundance somehow to myself and others? There, I got all the planets in. And of course, all aspect patterns have pretty much an infinite number of possible interpretations. So, you know, what I'm just throwing out the things that seem most resonant for me. And of course, I have my own biases and worldview. And another person with a different mindset would have a completely different way of working with that, and it would be every bit as valid. Okay? As long as it makes archetypal sense, it's a valid interpretation. Okay? So again, any thoughts on the triple Thor's hammer before we move along? And a double Thor's hammer. Okay, 2 of them together. Okay, Ceres, Pallas, Saturn, Chiron. Once again, Saturn, and this one is October 10 to November 1st, roughly paralleling the other one for most of its play. This one, I feel Ceres, for some reason, more of a healing vibe, like healing wounds in relationship with someone, like the mother-daughter thing. So I'm feeling that maybe Pallas is saying, take an assertive action to bring some kind of healing to some sorrow or loss you've given. And can you perhaps fully mourn and release the loss that was already there? Might be a really wonderful healing way to take this. A more simple would be take assertive step to feel where is my own self-esteem not as strong as I would like it to be, and can I do conscious shadow work or take techniques or strategies to bring that into a healing place. I'll give you a hint in my own experience. I think, frankly, spiritual awakening is the best cure for low self-esteem, because when you experience firsthand that you are the divine and that it is your actual consciousness, the divine has no self-esteem problems. It feels great about itself all the time. I like to say that awakening is good for what ails you. So basically just getting to that next level where you can see all the human difficulties and problems, you can say, oh wow, like I said, from that perspective, it's all perfect. You can say, oh, it's all just a training ground, it's a little game. I get it, I don't have to take it so personally because I'm not really a person. I'm a pure energy, okay? So if that makes no sense to you, then if you get on some kind of awakening path and you get to that level, then it'll start making sense. But it does sound like crazy gibberish until you do, I understand that. So I say that knowing some people are going to think, this guy's out of his mind. Okay. And there's a couple of related Thor's hammers within that, and I've listed those here in the related area. But again, don't want to verbalize those. Okay. So next. All right. Lunations. Good. We have 17 minutes to cover all the lunations. All right. Okay. So I'm going to take a breath and see, is there any burning questions or comments that have arisen that want to be expressed right now before we go to this final leg of the journey here? Alrighty. So I did not list every full and new moon, but there were a lot. I think I probably got 40 or 50% of them because they all had some juice. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because, again, our time is limited, but I want to hit the main points. The very first lunation of the year, the full moon, January 2017, is really intense. It's a full moon in Cancer. The sun is conjunct Pluto, both luminaries square Uranus. And remember what I told you with the, it's all here. The Grand Cross with Uranus, Pluto, Jupiter, and Vesta is there. So basically the full moon aligns with that Grand Cross that we already talked about. And that becomes its primary theme. So now the difference between new and full moons, fundamentally, new moons are of course for new beginnings. It's an initiating energy for the 2 weeks when the moon goes from dark to full. You know, you start stuff, you expand things. Once the moon goes full and wanes down to new again, that's an energy of release and adjustment. So in electional astrology, which is the art of how do I time stuff, if you start something new, rule one, do it under a waxing moon, you know, if at all possible. Okay. So here the full moon is more about release. So it's more like, wow, how can I paradigm shift, not so much by initiating here, but by releasing something or adjusting something that's already in play, would be a very fundamental way to do this. And again, since things closest to the moon are resonant, we've got the moon conjunct Vesta again. You might ask yourself, how can I hone myself as a finer instrument of service? And is there some new thing or adjustment I can make in the higher work I'm doing, where it's not just all selfish for me, but I feel like I'm contributing to the greater good somehow by what I'm doing? So obviously there's more. I will briefly mention, Saturn conjunct Juno almost exactly at this moment, and making that adjustment angle quincunx to the moon could be a little relationship challenge in the mix here, possibly. Mars-Chiron conjunct can do the same thing, actually. So be alert to that, but mainly think, how can I release and revolutionize my life by letting go or adjusting, would be the main theme here. Questions, comments? Okay, eclipse. Now sometimes eclipses come in threes. In 2017, the eclipses are always about 6 months apart. They do come in pairs this time, so there are only 4 eclipses in 2017. Okay, so the one on February 10th. I judge eclipses by 2 main factors. One is how close is it to the nodes, and how many juicy aspects does it have. So this eclipse, an eclipse has to be within, I believe, 18.5 degrees. The luminary has to be that close to the lunar node. And in case you don't know, a lunar node, that's these horseshoe guys that you haven't seen till now. They are a virtual point in space. Astronomically, if you draw a line, the ecliptic is the tabletop around which the planets roll roughly as they orbit. I mean, it's obviously very rough, but that center of the the center of the sun to the earth is the ecliptic, and then the moon every 2 weeks goes above and below that. And the point where it goes above that imaginary line is the north node, and 2 weeks later when it goes down below it is the south node. So that's how those points are calculated in case you are interested astronomically. Now here, they're barely an eclipse at all. I'm sorry, no, forgive me, that's actually 11 or 12 degrees, so that's a moderately strong eclipse. It's about 2/3 as far of the eclipse orb as it could be. So there's some juice to it. It's not in the super strong range. And if you look at it, it doesn't have a lot of hard energy. And by the way, when I show these lunations, the only planets I chose to display are the ones that are actually aspecting the luminaries, the sun and the moon. Occasionally, I will show something else if it seems really relevant. But for example, here, this one, again, a lunar eclipse is a full moon, which is release or adjustment. The moon is in Leo. So you might say, what can I release to, again, step more fully if I'm called into the leader, the entertainer, more rest, recreation, fun, risk-taking in an appropriate way. And there's a lot of aspect patterns here that are involved with the luminaries. In fact, to go simplest to strongest, we've got this is the grand trine here, kite point on the sun. The moon is one of its members. It actually, it's an envelope!
Yeah.
Upside down. I just saw it. Okay, so a lot of harmonious connection. To keep it simple, let's just say we've got Uranus flowing revolutionary change, intuitive flashes, how you can make these adjustments or releases. We've got Saturn trine, giving comfortable structure to do that with. We've got Jupiter expanding. So I would say, looking at the overall flow of this lunar eclipse, it looks really harmonious. So I'd say the lunar eclipse here on February 10th is a wonderful time to release or adjust anything, especially in a Leo flavor, but it just looks like a wonderful time to, let go and let things flow in a beautiful way. So I feel fundamentally harmonious, flowing, helpful energy under this eclipse. So again, any questions or comments on that one?
Well, with hope, also the quincunx between the Leo moon and the Chiron and Pisces,
Mhm.
I see that as like the Leo egoic self adjusting to accommodate more of the divine, ultimate oneness self.
Nice. And let me mention, I perceive Leo working on two possible levels. The less evolved Leo is like saying, I need your attention because I've got a hole that needs filling in me, and I will draw your attention positively if I can and negatively if I must, because I just need energy, because this black hole in me needs filling, okay? But once you awaken to enough of a degree where you realize, oh my God, I'm more like the sun shining, and I now still want your attention, not because I need anything from you, because I've got something I want to give you. I want to radiate this beautiful light of love and wonderful energy out to you. And if you're not paying attention to me, I can't give it to you. So Leo has its own journey. So it might be interesting to contemplate, where am I on that mission? Am I still needing to draw energy into me because there's a need that needs fulfilling, or have I connected enough with my own source that I just want to radiate out? So it's an interesting journey with Leo. Okay, moving on. The solar eclipse on February 26th is a kite. And a lot of conjunctions in this one. The solar eclipse is in Pisces, so at the very basic level, new beginnings in the Pisces stuff I was talking about. On the high side, deeper spiritual awakening, creative inspiration being expressed, moving into the world of dreams and the inner world, etc. This one's very tight with the nodes. It's only about 5 degrees away. So that's, given that it could be 18, that's pretty tight on the nodes. And if that wasn't enough, it's conjunct Neptune, just about 3 degrees away. Neptune and Pisces mean exactly the same thing, because I've given you Neptune already. So profound opportunity here to really either begin or deepen things in the realm of spiritual connection or inspired creativity, or just being in the flow generally. I know you all have had the experience of being in flow state where it's just like, time doesn't even seem to be there. I'm just being run or operated. It's It's kind of magical, especially when you get in creative or athletic stuff. You just sort of go into flow time. That's kind of what Pisces feels like. I remember back in the days when I was a professional singer-songwriter, when I first moved here to Asheville, I was also meditating at that point. I said, I got a big pipeline coming down from God, and I got 2 spigots. And I turn one, and I get a song out, and I turn the other one, and I get some meditative bliss. And they both put you in flow state. So it's kind of fun that way. So that's obviously the main theme, is that wonderful Pisces. We've also got Mercury conjunct the luminaries about roughly 7 degrees away. So it's saying, do you have something to communicate out? Is there some teaching you want to give? And it could also be learning, to be fair. You can actively learn things. But, expressing in the Piscean realm, because Mercury is in Pisces, about spirituality or inspiration or creativity or whatever you're called to flow about. There's a lot more to this. We've got a little bit of the only hard energy from a physical body is coming from Uranus, Mars, which are almost exactly conjunct at this moment. They're connecting with a little 45-degree semi-square, a little bit of energy coming in to kind of juice things up some. And there's more planets I could bring in, for example, the 3 asteroid goddesses, but I think that's probably the main vibe of this, and time doesn't really permit me to go much deeper, unless anyone else has a question or comment on it. All right. Full moon March 12th. I'm going to start going a little quicker because our time is running short. Full moon in Virgo asks, what do I need to release or adjust in terms of my service to others, my health, or refining systems and tweaking things up? This one has a very tight connection with both. There's 3 planets opposing the moon, Vesta, Chiron, and Mercury. So this could be you stepping more fully into your own healer mentor role, if that's ready for you. Or it could be you experiencing some profound healing, if that's what your need is under this full moon. So this could be potentially a release of old wounds under this full moon energy, starting on March 12th. Mercury and Chiron both are about communicating and counseling. So if you feel like you need some assistance from another person, this would be a wonderful energy under which to get guidance or active assistance from someone. Or if you're a giver of such, good time to be doing that as well. This one has quite a bit more hard energy. Saturn is square the luminaries. So we've got a T-square with Saturn and the moon and all those other planets over there. So once again, a potential challenge if something in your life is out of alignment with your soul purpose. Saturn will bring that to your attention most likely under the full moon, and the first thing to ask is, how do I release or adjust to accommodate that? I did bring another aspect pattern in here, which is not technically part of the lunation, but we talked about it. We got the Grand Cross with Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter, and Vesta here that we talked about earlier. So that energy is in the mix as well, indirectly. So good time to make some profound revolutionary shift with the themes we just described. So any questions on this? Okay. April 11th, another juicy moon. This one aligns directly with one of those big, juicy, hard aspect patterns. The moon is in Libra. And what we have is the core pattern we talked about earlier is the big Grand Cross with Pluto, Juno, Uranus, Vesta, and Jupiter, that big Grand Cross at that time. And the moon is hanging out with Jupiter, and the sun's down there with Uranus. So basically, this is one of the most intense full moons of the year because it aligns with, probably the juiciest Grand Cross of the year. So good opportunity here on April 11th to really release dramatically what doesn't serve you. Ask yourself, what major paradigm shift could I make in my life now? And that could go a couple of ways. If you're cruising really well in an area, it could be just jumping it to the next level and saying, wow, it got even more amazing. I didn't have to change anything. It just kind of went up a level. Or it could be a profound release of something that's not serving you. With the moon in Libra, of course, look carefully at your relationships. If you're artistic, look at your creative expression. Juno, of course, in the mix is once again referring back to important partnerships. So again, look closely at partnerships under this lunation as well. And that, for me, is the broad vibe of that one. Any comments or questions? All right, now we get to skip a few months. July 9th, we have a full moon that is not on the level of intensity we saw the others, but it is conjunct Juno, opposing Mars. Basically, what we've got here is a T-square with Mars, Jupiter, Juno aligning with the luminaries. And I don't recall if we covered that one specifically, but full moon, release or adjust. Again, relations is the big theme again, with Juno conjunct the moon and being so strongly stimulated. So I've kind of beat that theme to death already tonight, so I won't reiterate it yet again. But what you have got is a little juicy sextile from Neptune, reminding you once again, if you can't figure it out at the ego level, why don't you relax and ask your higher self what you should do? You know, my journey in the recent years has been less and less mental activity and more just being told what to do by the divine, or it's not even so much a voice anymore, it's just a knowingness. It's like I finished one activity and I just suddenly find myself doing the next one after the other. And in fact, that's my current definition of what higher purpose could be. You know, we think higher purpose is having a mental understanding of what the big thing is and what we're striving toward, but it could just be, I finish one thing and I do the next thing Spirit tells me to do, without even needing a long-range idea. So try that on for size. So any questions or comments on this one? I'll tell you, in relation to that, I know in my own life, when I came here in 2001 to be a singer-songwriter, my life has been completely different than I ever thought it would be. I ended up being an astrologer and a shamanic healer and helping people wake up spiritually, and none of that was on my agenda. So what I found is when you go after what you think your life purpose is with all the gusto you have, which is what I did when I moved here at the age of 41, I said, I'm living my dream, come hell or high water. And it turned out the momentum carried me in a completely different direction that turned out to be much better than what I had planned. So I highly recommend following your dream with absolute maximum passion, and also realizing that it may end up looking very different than you thought, and that different may be way better than what you had envisioned. Okay. New moon on July 23rd. First degree of Leo with Mars. What do you think that one's about? Maybe on July 23rd, you're being said, what new beginning in the Leo themes we've already talked about? Do I need to step more into leader, entertainer, something to do with kids or my own childlike playfulness or risk-taking or any of the things? Do I need to relax more? Uranus square is helping you paradigm shift very quickly. There's a Uranus-Mars square in the mix here. So of all the new moons in this year that we're looking at, this is one of the best for an amazing fast kickstart. To have Mars, the initiator, right there conjunct the luminaries, 1 degree away basically, and Uranus kickstarting the whole thing too. Chiron is trining, giving you a flowing aspect for once, saying, and the wisdom you need will flow to you from the source it needs to come from. And Neptune with a minor heart aspect says, yeah, the divine's available if you ask. You know, Neptune and Uranus are both intuition, by the way. They just come differently. Uranus is like the sudden eureka lightning strike, and Neptune is more like the waterfall that just flows all the time. So you got both intuition planets, and Chiron, as you pointed out, in Pisces, you know, which is also the sign of intuition. So all kinds of intuitive availability here to guide you in what ego-based action you need to take. So it's a really sweet new moon there on July 23rd. Okay, a couple of more eclipses. Okay, so here we have the moon in Aquarius, my sun sign. So it's saying, okay, what release need to be made so you can, remember the Uranus 3-part prescription I gave you earlier? Fly the freak flag, follow the intuitive flashes, serve the collective with the special talents you love to use. Thank you for coming. That's what this lunar eclipse is first and foremost asking. And something I totally forgot to mention earlier, the reason eclipses are such a big deal is the effects last 6 to 12 months. You know, a normal lunation, you got a couple of weeks really to play with the energy before it shifts. But lunations are long-term plays. I mean, the eclipses are long-term. So that's why they're so much more important.
And Benjamin,
yes?
by this one, the nodes have shifted signs.
Uh-huh. That's true. Now they've backed into Leo. Mm-hmm. So, and so is and of course the moon and the south node are in Aquarius too. So, excellent point. So this one is about how can I release to become more authentic, hear by intuitive flashes, follow them better, serve the collective. The square to Pallas Athena asks, can I use a soft win-win assertiveness to get that? Mars, and it's interesting, the T-square the luminaries make has both aggressive planets. Vesta does a little more gently, Mars does a little more aggressively, especially in Leo. So even though it's lunar and releasing, it's saying maybe I need to put some strong energy into how I'm releasing and adjusting here. Maybe it's an energetic release and adjustment more than it would normally be. Jupiter expands its flow down to the moon to help out. And I don't know why I left that square there. That was a mistake. I'm sorry. So I think we covered most of the energies there. So we've got a reasonable amount of juice. Oh, I know. Pluto's there because it's throwing a little 30 degree over to the moon to give it a little energy. Okay. Minor aspect, but I like to say with Pluto there are no minor aspects. So I hopefully gave you, again, I didn't cover all the planets, but those were the juicy ones that I really thought were most important. The fourth and final eclipse of 2017, solar eclipse on August 21st, Leo. Okay, close to the node, only about 5 degrees out. Mars conjunct, that's a lot of driving, initiating energy. And I didn't mention this, the houses are completely irrelevant in everything we're looking at. Just totally ignore houses. I couldn't wipe them out, but they don't have any relevance for what we're doing here today. So wow, great energy to step out, really be the leader, the entertainer, get in the spotlight, assertively, strongly. And you've got plenty of flow to help you. Uranus with a trine is flowing intuitive flashes up to support you. Saturn is flowing up structure. There's that Saturn-Uranus trine we talked about earlier. Juno is finally in a harmonious setup here. So this says you may have allies who are helping you take this forward motion. So you can really step out and bring your juju here. New moon on September 20th. I just love that pattern. It looks like a TIE fighter or something. Yeah. New beginnings it's a Virgo new moon, new beginnings in service, health, refinement. Tightly conjunct Vesta, what higher calling can you serve with all this? Chiron tightly opposing. This could be a new start in healing or being the mentor. Saturn bringing challenge as needed to help you. And because we're running short, I'm going to move on from that. Full moon October 5th. How do you need to make adjustments so you can be more of an advocate for a worthy cause or a pioneer or an initiator or an entrepreneur is what this is really saying. And the Pluto square is fueling your efforts in that release or adjustment. And Mercury would say, what information do you need? And can this new energy you're moving towards somehow serve the higher good and not just you? And Jupiter enters Scorpio on October 10th. Jupiter goes about one sign per year, and Jupiter's nature is to amplify whatever it comes into. Scorpio is basically the same energy I was describing as Pluto earlier. There's a thing called the astrology alphabet where there's a planet, a sign, and house that all mean the same thing. So it's basically amplifying, releasing all that does not serve you, surrendering to more divine power. One meaning I did not get into before that I'll add now is that Scorpio is the sign of the occult, astrology, numerology, tarot, runes, mediumship, psychic reading, all the stuff that involves connecting with the energies beyond the obvious physical world. The nature of Scorpio and Pluto both is about shared energy, blending with something else. It can be, energetic lovemaking with someone where you're blending your bodies and other things. It can be even having a joint bank account. Scorpio and Pluto actually rule taxes and inheritance and things like that in a more mundane way. But it's just saying juicy connection. It's not just about you individually. With Jupiter and Scorpio, how can you partner either with other beings or other energy fields or other states of consciousness and merge more fully into something else instead of just thinking you're an island. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. New moon October 19th, Libra, new beginnings in relationship. That could be a new relationship or it could be new energy into an existing one, also new creativity. Jupiter is there expanding it. I love that Jupiter and Mercury are both conjunct the luminaries because those are the two teacher planets. And this could be a new beginning of either learning or sharing information here on October 19 with this new moon. Those are very juicy. Uranus exactly opposing within minutes of that new moon says you've got a revolutionary launch window here. You could really take off in a big way. Saturn is there with a sextile, give you some foundation and support for it. One of the nicest new moons of the year, actually, for really getting wonderful things kicked off. especially if they involve learning or sharing information, or Libra, relationship or creativity. So that's the main juju there, I think. Full moon November 4th. Taurus. I'm not so inspired by this one, except to say a couple of quick things. We haven't really talked about the energy of Taurus tonight, but Taurus is about 5 senses. This says, full moon, am I in my body enough? Am I paying attention to my sight and sound and hearing and taste and enjoying my sensual experience? Lots of beings lined up to have human bodies here. It's a real privilege to have these 5 senses active, enjoy them. Taurus is also about nature. Are you getting enough time in the natural world to heal, harmonize, and balance you? So those are some things to contemplate under that energy. The other thing I'll bring out briefly is the Neptune sextile. Taurus is a very grounded physical energy. Neptune is divine etheric energy. That sextile says one thing you could do is you could move more into embodied awakening. And there's actually a whole tutorial about this on my site. If you go to astroshaman.com, there's a purple banner. It says Heal and Awaken Invocations. And just a week or two ago, I radically expanded my articles about this. It's now much easier to follow them. So if you would like a simple, free way to actually not only awaken, but have it be functioning on a daily basis, I give a way to do that. It's certainly not the only way. It may not even be your best way, but it's available if you want to check it out. And it's free. Neptune sextile, a Taurus moon is what inspired me to say that. Okay. New moon December 18. Whoa, look at all that. So December, this is the final lunation of the year. So new moon in Sag, expansion, new beginning. Is life an adventure enough? Can you Saturn structure the adventure in a way that works well for you? Venus, new creativity, new relationships are all in the game there. Chiron square says maybe some healing needs to be in the mix, or maybe some mentoring, or maybe you need to step out and mentor some yourself or heal others. Uranus trine, giving you an easy paradigm shift. So the last new beginning is a strong one at the end of 2017. And the last event, we're at the end. Saturn enters Capricorn on December 19th. He spends about 2.5 years in the sign. That's his home sign that he rules, or one of them, the one he's most commonly associated. He rules Aquarius anciently as well. But Saturn in Capricorn is like, structure, tradition. On the high side, it's maturity, discipline, focus, working the plan, being more business-like in your approach and structured. So that's going to be really juicy. He's traditionally associated with more conservative things, so the fact that we'll be in a Trump presidency definitely fits with a Capricorn Saturn. And we're done. Any questions? Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to my Benjamin Bernstein YouTube channel to be notified when I post new videos. And if you like this video, please share it. This free video forecast is a partner project with iTunes #1 astrology audio podcast, This Week in Astrology. That's also free. You can get my semi-monthly astrology forecast in writing by subscribing to my free email newsletter at astroshaman.com. Once you're there, you can also link to my Facebook page where I post daily forecasts. My personal services include astrology, shamanic healing, and awakening activation. All are equally effective in person or long distance. My guarantee makes my services risk-free. If you don't feel your experience was helpful, there's no charge. I also offer other great products and services, many of which are free. To learn more, visit astroshaman.com. Thanks again for watching. I wish you infinite blessings as the stars light your way.